I apologize about the hiccup in the computer. I will have to make a separate video here on foreign exchange risk. So there are three types of risks that companies hate the most. It's the transaction risk, which is the value of foreign currencies when they change to domestic currencies. Then there's the economic risk that over time the firm loses profits because sales due to foreign exchange rate changes. And that the translation risk, where financial statements translated into the firm's currency looks weaker too. So the transaction is where the currency physically changes. Economic risk is where activities, economically speaking, like say, unfortunately, a war in Ukraine is going to affect the euro or the ruble as much as it's going to affect the dollar. Then there's the translation, where no money exchange, but when we zip tie the activities into our accounting books, once we go from, say, euro to dollar, it looks different. It may be weaker that year or something. So those are the types of risks we're worried about. But we're going to talk about how we can manage foreign exchange risks in transactions. There are a number of tools available for companies, particularly bigger companies. So in payment methods, we have exporting and importing protections and options like an export bank, for example, regulated and ran by the trade.gov. You go to trade.gov and you'll find a lot of options that will help you in exporting your products. But the foreign exchange risk, we have other tools like hedging. People wonder what is hedging or what is a derivative or something. All it basically is protecting future sales to stabilize prices today. Say I believe the price of the euro is going to go up tomorrow or in the future of my deal 6 months from now while I still have this transaction. Then I'm going to want to secure in the euro price today. Let's say I'm dealing in the euro and the price is up today and it's going to go down in 6 months' time, and I want the lower price, then I would want the price of tomorrow. And that's what you could do. So, for example, imagine Airbus dealing in euros, selling to a Russian Airlines, Aeroflot, some planes. That takes years to do the deal because you got to make the planes. They deal in rubles, but we could do the deal in dollars even. So euros and rubles are convertible into the dollar exchange for the deal, and we could hedge about the foreign currency of the dollar because the ruble would rather be a part of the dollar and the euro would rather be a part of the dollar in translating. Therefore, we'd rather just do the whole exchange in dollars. So what happens is we say years from now, we hedge against the cost of tomorrow, and so we can have better prices today, and that's what we do in the deal. So that's what hedging is about. Take international finance. You'll love that section. I hope you do. I did. It was so fun calculating these future exchanges that help with the futures contracts for companies. That was fun. There's also other things like swaps, where you swap currencies, where a business works with a bank in euros and we work in dollars. We'll take their euro loan and then they'll take our American dollar loan. We will we'll get the exchange potentially even interest rates or keep interest rates and change the currency, even though the values of the loans are slightly different. We're swapping currencies, so we don't have to worry about any physical exchange of cash. We're operating for our euros with a subsidiary or our business activity in the Eurozone without having to worry about bringing dollars into euros. Nothing ever exchanged. Very easy, very cool. Not easy. There's also some systems where you cannot convert currencies. This could be a policy thing, like with China, which is the worst. They do not allow the remuneration of money outside their country. And other countries where their currencies have no value, their paper money is so worthless, you have to do business in trade and barters, like the old-fashioned way. And this is quite fascinating and actually very viable, because many people think, well, if you have bread and I have spears, how can we trade? That doesn't make sense. Thousands of years ago, they didn't have the tools that we have today, where, the third vehicle, the money, has changed the world. in that sense, but we still have ways where we can work around it. Give you an example. I'll give you an example in a second. But where China, they expect that money made in China stays in China. Why do they do that? The reason being is they want to continue to grow their internal market. The Eurozone is all about their internal market. African Union is the same thing. All of it's about creating internal demand. And if money leaves, then you don't get to have growing internal demand. That's the belief. And that's why China regulates currency. And they regulate the money remunerating outside China. So there's ways to do this. Of course, there's offsets. When dealing with a government buyer, the seller will purchase a certain percentage of initial export transactions that's from the country. So they'll buy a Chinese made, for example. Or the buyback, a firm buys a certain amount of output made by the equipment they sold. That's the example I'll give in a second. And then there's switch trading, where parties exchange expertise, or it's an exchange of using a third party to help with the deal. So what is the most common example I can give you is a good idea for a company to manage a currency convertible is the buyback. So let's imagine a German factory which is producing a plant, or they make plants. Germany actually exports factories. They make and design and sell factories. They design a factory for Kellogg, an American company with a Chinese subsidiary, and they want to make the factory for China. But remember, China cannot really money cannot leave China so easily. So they make the factory, sell it to Kellogg in China, and in exchange, because Kellogg wants to keep the money in yen, not using their dollars, they will exchange 8 million euros. Let's say it's an $8 million factory. They can exchange 8 million euros worth of muesli, the German word for cereal or oats that they produce. They produce the cereal in China, and we get that $8 million over the course of 5 years production. So we get a percentage of the production, the valued at $8 million today. The factory could then, the German company can then convert that muesli into cash through a sale with distributors in its own market. And they could do all of this without ever touching the cereal. You know, because you're afraid you'll be like holding 8 million euros worth of cereal. No, you take this contract and sell it to a trusted buyer in your own market, and they will get the cereal over the next 5 years because they need it anyways. That's what they wanted to import. And they handle everything, and you get the cash. Pretty fascinating. So that's a way around currency inconvertibility and how to convert something that's not convertible into cash without having to own a bunch of like pork bellies or orange juice. So this is one way to do it.